let's say this is part 9. Again, weirdness in the actual death scene and elsewhere. But let's stay with the death scene. Let's talk about Chester Bennington. He hangs himself allegedly from a door with a leather belt. So the buckle part would have to be down around the neck, and the thin part would have to be in the door. I guess it's possible. They found him again with this belt around his neck, his feet touching the floor with knees bent. Again. Now you're trying to tell me again. A rock star that doesn't have a lot of out of control stories either. Yet, everyone tries to paint them as, this ultra depressed all the time, ultra drug addict, suicidal maniac. Wasn't any of those things. Yes, he was depressed a lot. I noticed that a lot of Chester's lyrics, there's a lot of depression going on there. But the suicide stories are not there. I'll get into that in a minute. Again, his feet are touching the ground, his knees are bent. So you're again trying to convince me that a man, Chester, not only rigged that whole thing up and hung himself, with his feet touching the floor, he just let it all happen. Didn't try and instinctively save himself, even with his feet even touching the floor. He just could have just straightened his knees and took the pressure off his neck. What's going on here? I didn't know human beings, or so many human beings, had this kind of fortitude. Anthony Bourdain as well. So you're trying to convince me that he tied something around a door or on a doorknob, a red whatever, put it around his neck and just leaned forward and let it happen. We keep hearing this story over and over again. Not someone hanging from a high place where they can't touch the ground, they can't save themselves. Once they jump or whatever, it's over, there's no going back. That's not the case in any of these 3 deaths. The case in these 3 deaths is utter fortitude like I don't even understand. Because, I've choked on food before. I've play fight with people where they try to little choke and, you start panicking, man. When you're choking, your body, you can't even control it. Your body does whatever the fuck it's got to do to save itself. It's an instinctive thing inside of us. So imagine the fortitude it would take for Bourdain to do that doorknob thing and lean forward and just let it happen. Has a million ways to save himself. Both hands, both legs, whatever. Cornell sitting on the floor, leaning forward or something, I don't know, and just letting it happen. Just utterly ignoring that instinctive urge to save himself. Chester Bennington, feet touching the floor, legs bent. Again, just letting it happen. Utter fortitude like I don't even understand. Fighting that instinct to save his own life. How do you do that? I don't know how to do that. Because every time I've choked in my life, I freaked out until I was able to save myself. I couldn't even help it. I couldn't even control it. Instinctive urge within me. So you've got 3 very similar deaths. And I'm not even linking them all to the same thing. I think they're 3 individual scenarios with individual possible perpetrators. Maybe I'm right on 2 of them. Maybe I'm right on 1 of them. Maybe I'm right on none of them. Maybe I'm wrong on 2, on 1. You know what I mean? These are theories I have based on what I see, what I just presented to you. Character evidence from verified sources, like brother-in-laws and sisters, like their own social media accounts, things they've said in legal documents, Cease and desist's meant to scare people, yet when it comes time to sue somebody, where are you at? No one's suing. What about these cease and desists you sent out to Chester's ex-wife, to Chester's brother-in-law and sister? I thought they were lying. What happened? What happened? Why didn't you sue? Oh, because maybe they're not lying. Maybe that is the story Chester gave them when he came over that day. And maybe that's the story Chester gave them when they needed help financially. And Chester wanted to help them because he's a good guy. And their family. And when Chester started distributing the help, when he was allowed to, once he came up with an acceptable idea for a little while, you're complaining you want to take it away from them because you need shoes. I don't know Talinda Bennington, but I'm assuming she's got plenty of shoes, and I'm assuming she had plenty of shoes back then. I mean, again, we're talking about normalizing behavior here. I can't normalize that. Some people might try and normalize that type of behavior, because when you reduce it down to its most common denominator, lowest common denominator, it's a woman who has money and power, married to a rich husband, she never worked for any of that. We know how she got to him, what path she took, what she's about. You have a woman who's mad that a family in need is getting help from a rich man. That's it. She didn't actually need shoes. Come on now, she's married to Chester Bennington. I'm sure she had plenty of fucking shoes. That's not really what it was about for her. It was about, how dare any of his money get spent on anything but me? That's what it's about, baby. That's what it's about. She didn't only have 2 pairs of shoes. She probably has a room bigger for her shoes than I live in. For inanimate objects. So again, the issue wasn't shoes. The issue is a greedy, narcissistic, not good person who couldn't stand that her husband was helping family with a little money. And put the kibosh on the first idea, paying off their home, as if Chester would even have felt that shit. But that's not the point with these types of people. However much money they have is never enough. I'm not talking about Chester. I'm talking about what he mistakenly married. Nothing is enough for these people. And even when they have utter ridiculous excess and security and comfort, God forbid the man who actually made the money, who they married, who bought them everything, hands a little bit of that money to some family. Oh my God, we can't have that. That's wrong. These are the type of people we're dealing with. Greed that you can't understand. Nothing they have will ever fill the hole inside. 20 million ain't enough. 80 million ain't enough. 2 billion ain't enough. Nothing's enough. The empire's got to keep growing. Because, 1,000 pairs of shoes, that ain't enough. How do you expect a woman to live with 1,000 pairs of shoes? A woman can't do that. She needs, 9,000 pairs of shoes. And even that's not enough. That's the type of attitude we're talking about here. So, I've gave you, in Cornell's case, I've given you the character of the person he married and the actions she took from her own emails, from her own legal documents that she put out there, from her own text messages that she released, from her own social media posts and her family's social media posts. We get a sense of who these people are. The same thing with the Bennington stories I just told you. We get a sense of their character. We get a sense of how these guys were living the last years of their life. What situations, unfortunately, they got themselves into. Then you got to ask, okay, do their deaths make sense based on the information we know? And real quick, I'll run through all three real quick, or four. Bourdain, when he died, the day he died, he was in a relationship with a woman who had sex with a 17-year-old before she met Bourdain, and Bourdain was paying the bill for that. Bourdain was paying off the boy that she slept with. In the middle of that arrangement, as he's paying it off over a course of time, he dies. Could he have said, yeah, I ain't paying the bill no more? Fuck you. Makes you wonder, though. That's a big secret that we didn't know about the day he died. We found out later on. That's important information. That puts a new light on the whole situation, doesn't it? And it's verified, proven true. The kid was all over social media talking about it. All over the press talking about it. How he slept with this woman. The pictures came out of them in bed together. Indisputable. The whole story came out. Everyone knows about it now that was paying attention. When you know that information, you gotta... Maybe he didn't die the way they say it. Maybe there's something else going on. That's a big fucking secret to have in the background of a guy's death. Cornell, the situation was, he's running a foundation, or his wife is. They're all on the board of the foundation, including Linda Ramon initially when Chris first died. Is suspended for some reason. Why is their charity suspended the day he dies? It's not the same day, but it was under suspension the day he died. In the middle of this process. That's one thing. You find out his wife is on the phone to an insurance attorney minutes after his death, doesn't bother to go pick up the body, has Chris's blood brother go pick up the body, who they proceeded to talk shit on for years after that, after they, used him to handle their work that they should have been doing. Yet she can get on a plane to go down to Detroit months later to fight for some insurance money and try and get Detroit to change a ruling on the death. 4 days after Chris's death, she's emailing someone about an insurance policy and talking about a lawyer, great lawyer she has to handle the situation, which is basically threatening to get a lawyer involved. That's really what she was doing that day with those emails. That's why she mentioned the lawyer. Like, I want to scare people. I want to mention I got this insurance lawyer ready to jump on it like a tiger. I want people to know this. That's where it was going. That's the reason for the email. Again, that's just a few character things. And, the old comment back in the day, going to Holt Renfrew to spend his money instead of spending the day with him and what he's doing, even though he's paying for all this. I'm talking about Chris Cornell, his wife, yes, putting a post out on social media. Saying, yeah, I'm paraphrasing. I'm ditching my husband. I'm going to go to Holt Renfrew and spend his money. There's that. There's so many more things. These are just small examples. There's her giving him the finger on stage that day while he's fucking performing, even though she did it in a quick, sly way. There's the gravesite. Weird things here. So let's see. I did Bourdain. I did Chris. Chester, I gave you the situation he was in. Wife won't sign a prenup. Wife doesn't want Chester helping the family. In fact, tries to stop him. She was an escort when he met her at a Dr. Nick party. This is what he was involved in. This is the person he married. This was his life when he died. After he died, she's with a new guy within 2 months. These things don't look good, people, and they lead one in a certain direction. Cobain, we know for a fact, his wife was telling a private investigator, he's trying to divorce me. I need you to find him. She pretended like she was worried about his safety or something. But she interjected that in. I think he's trying to divorce me. She also wanted the private eye to find Kurt with a girl. She also made a phone call to a lawyer about can she get around a prenup of some sort. Her prenup, his prenup, who knows who had it. I don't believe anybody that says they know for sure. So I'm not sure who had the prenup, but one party wanted to get around the prenup, whatever that prenup was. And it wasn't Kurt. So we know all that's going in the background, that he's possibly divorcing this bitch and taking the money with him. Maybe taking the kid too. Who knows who would get custody? You know, when you know all that, there's a possible motive there. And then when you know that the real piece of information, he took enough heroin to kill 3 elephants. And yet he was able to pick up a shotgun and do all that whole process. I'm sorry, I know if I took a dose of heroin enough to kill 3 elephants, or extremely high dose of heroin, I'm going right to sleep, probably dying, I'm not picking up nothing. You're crazy. One more thing and I'll end it. The suicide stories with Chester Bennington. Another thing that doesn't make sense. Where's these out of control suicide stories? Here's the stories that his widow was pissed that the police leaked, probably for money. She wanted them kept quiet because these are the big suicide stories with Chester Bennington from his widow directly to the cops. He left the house one day in an agitated state with a gun. She puts that in the suicide attempt category. He jumped in a pool. He hogtied himself. He jumped in a pool saying he was going to kill himself. She puts that in the suicide category. Yeah, neither of those sound like suicide attempts. Someone tries to shoot them in the head and they shoot themselves in the head and they survive and they go to the hospital. That's a suicide attempt. Someone takes a handful of pills, wants to end it all. For some reason they don't die, they stay alive. That's a suicide attempt. Trying to hurt yourself and it fails. These 2 stories that were relayed as alleged examples of suicide stories, of attempted suicide. Leaving the house in an agitated state with a gun is not an attempted suicide in any way, shape, or form. Jumping in a pool after you hogtie yourself as a serious suicide attempt, yeah, that's a joke. That sounds like horseplay to me, actually. So these are the big suicide attempt stories for ultra-depressed Chester Bennington. That's how the world presents him to us. They don't sound like attempted suicide stories to me. Again, this is what's wrong with everything. Nothing makes sense. And it leads one in other directions. Have a good day.